Hey, welcome 23. We've been talking over the last, our vision, our mission is to connect this community that we live in to the Christ that we love. So we believe like God's given us this building and this land, and it's really great, and we're grateful for it. But really our job as followers of Jesus is to go wherever he takes us and brings us to be like Christ to people in our community. We love this community. We're so grateful to be in Fort Collins. We've been talking about the story of Easter last week, and then we'll finish it next week. So if you want to come back next week and check it out, you should. And we're talking about how the story of Easter is the greatest story ever told. You know, it's really like the basis of like every story that's written today. Kind of like goes back to that story. Like if you know, like whatever your favorite story or book or whatever is, kind of ties into this to the imminent defeat that was going to happen, right? And on Friday when Jesus dies, it was like it's over, and people scatter. And then today we celebrate that he is risen. When I was a kid, we used to say we would greet everyone with "Hello, he is risen." Anyone else do that? So I was doing that this morning, but people were just looking at me funny, so I didn't actually do that. But that's fine. That's how I grew up. But the reason why story is so important is that when something as bad is going to happen, or when the hero is in trouble, there's always somebody that comes in and saves the day, right? It's like at the last minute, somebody swoops in and saves the day. So I'm kind of a movie guy, so I have a couple examples of that. So the first one, probably the most important saves the day story, is when Han Solo comes in. And he, at the end, right before Luke Skywalker is going to get destroyed, he saves him so they can destroy the Death Star. Okay, not Star Wars fans. Great, okay. This is another one of my favorites where Rocky, you know, the Russian kills his friend, and he comes and he goes to Russia, and he like trains in the woods and punches trees, and the Russian's like, if he dies, he dies, right? He's just like this mean. I love it. Rocky 4 is my favorite. Anyone Rocky 4? That's the best one. That's so good. And then at the end, the Russians are like cheering, Rocky, Rocky, you know, Rocky saves the day. But you know, sadly, sometimes evil does triumph, just so you know. So sometimes no matter how hard you try, evil triumphs. Good job, Joel. That was good timing, buddy. I was waiting for that all week. That's so exciting. One of the joys of being able to do this is you get to do all the stupid things in your mind in public. So, yeah, Tom Brady won. It stunk. 28-0. Or down 28-3. Comes back, wins the game. My son cries and goes to bed. Anyways. So the greatest story that's ever told is the story of Christ and how when it seemed like all hope was lost, Jesus comes back from the dead, which is insane, you know. And on Sunday this morning, that's what we celebrate, that Jesus is alive and well. And the things that he did and the things that he said are true and applicable and alive and active today in our lives. So we're going to talk about, last week we talked about two roads. Today we're going to talk about two thieves. And one of my favorite parts of the story of the cross is the two thieves on each side of Jesus. So we're going to read about that now. So the scriptures will be on the screen, and you can read them there. So Luke 23 says, 2 other men, both criminals, were also led out with him to be executed. When they came to the place called the Skull, they were crucified there along with the criminals, one on either side, one on his right and one on his left. And in that day, when there was someone in the middle, he was the worst offender. You know, they put the thieves on each side, and they put the murderer, the worst offender, in the middle. So Jesus is there, and he's the innocent one, and he is the one in the middle, and the thieves who are rightly judged are on each side, and they're being crucified. And the place of the skull is literally a mountain in Israel that looks like a skull. It's like has 2 little eye holes, a little nose hole. It's crazy, on the edge of the city. And as people would come in and out of the city, they would see the criminals. That's how they tried to deter crime. Like, I don't want to end up like that guy, right? Imminent death, like you're done. It's toast by that point. And then Jesus says these incredible words. He says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they are doing. And then they divided up his clothes by casting lots. So in the midst of the pain, and Jesus, you know, he really says, there's like 7 things Jesus says in this whole process. In the whole 4 or 5 days, he only says a couple things. And so every word that Jesus says in these moments is really crucial. It's really important. And when he's getting mocked and he's gotten beaten, he's been nailed to the cross, and you can go watch the Passion of the Christ. It shows it more than you can even understand. And in that moment of of rejection. All of his friends, all his followers left except for his mother and Mary and John. And he's up there, and he finds it in his heart and his life to say, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. That's a powerful, powerful moment, isn't it? It's not just this like haphazard thing. Yeah, forgive him because I should, because I'm Jesus, right? It's like in the most pain he's been in the most rejection, and knowing that his end is coming, he still finds it in his heart. He finds it in his time to forgive them. Then it says, the people stood watching, and the rulers even sneered at him. He saved others, but let him save himself. If he is God's Messiah, the chosen one. The soldiers came up and mocked him. They offered him wine vinegar and said, if you are the king of the Jews, save yourself. There was written a notice above him, which read, this is the king of the Jews. One of the criminals who hung there hurled insults at him. Aren't you the Messiah? Save yourself and us. And the other criminal rebuked him. Don't you fear God, he said, since you are under the same sentence? We are punished justly, for we are getting what our deeds deserve, but this man has done nothing wrong. And in Matthew and Mark's account of the story, it says that both criminals jeered him and ridiculed him and mocked him. Okay? But in Luke's part of the story, Luke's the doctor, right? Luke's taking notes. He's keeping more track of what's going on. He's got the details down. And in Luke's account, he says that one of them mocked him and the other one said, what are you doing? Don't you fear God? And he observes that Jesus had done nothing wrong. And some scholars believe that at the beginning of this process, when they were hearing about this Jesus guy who was getting beat up and bloody, and they see him walking up, barely even able to walk up the street with his cross, and they see him nailed to the cross, and they see him quiet, and some scholars think that both of the thieves, both of the criminals, started by mocking him and started by ridiculing him. But it was in the way that Jesus handled things, in the way that Jesus was the humble, quiet king, that one of the other thief changed his tune a little bit. And he realized, wait, this isn't like another one of us. This isn't like one of us who've been in crime all our lives or been trying to deserve exactly where we're at right now. This man doesn't deserve it, and he could tell. Because he saw and he heard and he knew who this Jesus was, and so he changed his tune. He changed his voice. And he said, told other criminal to stop. And then he says this. He turns to Jesus. And he says, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And then Jesus answered him, truly I tell you, today you'll be with me in paradise. And those words to me are like the most hopeful words that Jesus has spoken. Because he's maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours till death, and the criminal's closer than he is probably. And the criminal understands, wait a minute, this is not someone like us. This is the one they've been talking about. And in kind of desperation, like he knows what's happening. He's not coming off that cross. He's not going to survive this. He says, will you remember me? Will you remember me even though you know exactly what I've done and where I've been? Will you remember me? And then Jesus says, truly you will be with me today in paradise. And that word truly is like the most firm, confident, rock solid word. Like yes. You know, like when you trust someone the most and they say, yes, I'm going to do that. And you're like, great. You can count on them. That's the word Jesus uses. He says, truly, you'll be with me today in paradise. And the cool word, I love that word paradise, because paradise is a restoration of what Eden was supposed to be. You know, you could say it's heaven, or you could say it's where we go for eternity, however you want to say it. But he's telling them, don't worry, where you're at now is not paradise. And today you're going to be with me in paradise. You can count on that. Because Jesus in that moment saved the thief on the cross. And he's promised eternity. 1 Corinthians says, for the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who have been saved, it is the power of God. So for us, what happened on Friday when Jesus dies and when he promises eternity and he forgives us and forgives the people there, and he puts his spirit and he gives his life back to the Father, and the Father turns his back on him for this moment to take on the sin of humanity. In this moment, Jesus is saying, it's okay, I'm going to tell you now what I'm doing today, because Sunday you're going to understand. Because Jesus doesn't just save us for eternity. He does do that. And that's incredible. But Jesus saves us today. And in that moment on the cross, he saved the thief that day and in that moment. And that's what Jesus does for us, each of us, today. And there's kind of like this, I grew up in this whole like, people walking around with signs that say Jesus saves. Anyone see that? And you're like, thank you, you know? And it's kind of like this, like, repent now, sinner, so you don't go to hell. And that was like the narrative of that. And Jesus is like, man, that is like not the point of this. Like, Jesus doesn't just save me or you for eternity. He saves you today. From the things that are going on in your life and from the things you don't understand and the things you can't control, the things that we see happen in our world, Jesus saves today, immediately, in this moment, in whatever is going on in your life, because the Son of God who endured everything so that he can understand everything you're going through. And so he can save you, just like the thief on the cross. Jesus saves when in our time of need, and he saves when we don't have any direction. Anyone ever feel like you don't have direction? This guy. He saves when hope is lost. He saves when people are sick. He saves when we feel this need to be perfect. God can save that, just so you know. God saves when you can feel, Jesus saves when you feel alone. He saves you from addiction, like Marcus. He saves you when your family seems to be falling apart. And he saves you, and he saved me from this life of mediocrity. The most tragic thing that happens is when we lead mediocre lives. And Jesus saves us from that. He saves us when our finances don't make sense. He saves us when we are insecure. He saves us when there's trauma, when there's conflict, and he saves us in every season. Jesus saves us from selfishness and pride, and he saves me, and he saves you daily. I think the greatest message of today, of Sunday, is that Jesus is alive and at work in our lives, and he wants to save our lives, and he wants to save us from the things that would want to destroy us or distract us or help us not live the fullest life that he would want for us. Jesus saves today. And in your life and in my life, I have things I need saving from. I don't know about you, it's hard to be a good father. It's hard to be a good husband. It's hard not to be selfish. It's hard not to fall into destructive things. It's hard not to stare at my phone every second of every day, right? And Jesus saves our life so we can live a better life. And he saves our soul so we can be in paradise with him for all of eternity. No questions asked. Sealed. It is truly, firmly, you will be with me in paradise. But the thing I think we miss out on the most is that Jesus saves us today. And that may be hard for you because you don't think you need saving from anything. But it's okay if you do. It's not weakness. It's not like a lack of, like you didn't make your way yourself. Jesus made the way himself, and he wants to save you in all things. I have this friend, and he was a pastor, and he was struggling. He was like, I'm going to quit. I'm done with this. He'd done it for like 15 years. By that point, most pastors are like, I'm done with this, And that would be a joke. And it's all right. It's Easter. It's fine. Don't worry about it. But he went away on the sabbatical. He got away, and he was just like, where's God? God's not speaking to me. He's not around. Like, Jesus, I need you. I don't know where to go. I don't know what's. And so the pastor that was with him in this counseling session was like, listen, you got to go and go in the woods. Just go in the woods. Figure it out. I think he was just like sick of dealing with them, get out of here and get in the woods. And the man's sitting down, and he's just like crying out to God, God, what do I do? How do I do this? How do I be the man I'm supposed to be? How do I pastor? How do I lead? How do I do all these things? And out of the woods, this is a true story. Out of the woods came a deer, and the deer walked up to him and put his head on the gad's shoulder and just sat there. And the guy was just like terrified, like, what is going on? And the deer, our dog does that sometimes, like especially when he does something wrong. And I just want to be like, give them to my neighbor. Yeah, we won't. He'll like put his head on my arm, and it's like, okay, fine. But this deer came and like put his head on his shoulder and just sat there, and he was just like, it's gonna be okay. In that moment, Jesus saved him. You know, last couple of years we went through a real hard time in our lives and in our direction, and I would just like go to bed at night thinking, what is going on? Where are you, God? I thought I've served you well. I thought I've done the right thing, whatever that means, you know. And you know how Jesus saved me? He would just tell me it's going to be okay. He would just tell me, I'm going to lead you through this. And the words that I've spoken to you and the promises that I've told you still stand. And he would use that word, truly, I tell you, it's going to be okay. And I could trust that because of what Jesus went through this week. Like if the grave wasn't empty, if Jesus is still in there, good luck counting on that. Right? Because then it's just philosophy and ideas, and it's just practical steps, which are really important, and we should learn from all sorts of places all over the world. That's really crucial. But the hope that I have and the hope that we can have today that Jesus does save is that today that tomb is empty. And I've been there, and he's not there. I promise. I looked behind the door even. Not there. Because today is Sunday. I want to read the account of Sunday if you want to look up at the board or at the screen there. You know, and it's cool because on Sunday the women come, Mary and the other Mary, apparently everyone's name was Mary back then, and they came to the tomb. You know what's amazing to me? Why did the two women come to the tomb on Sunday? And why did all the disciples just hide in the house? Because the two women still believed. They still believe like he's not going to be there. He's going to do what he said he did. And the guys are just hiding in the back, you know, locked away, you know. And this is what happened. It says, the angel spoke to the woman. There's nothing to fear here. An angel came, rolled away the stone, and a light shone. There's nothing to fear here. I know you're looking for Jesus, the one who was nailed to the cross. He is not here. He was raised just as he said. Come and look at the place where he was placed. Now get on your way quickly and tell the disciples, he is risen from the dead. He is going ahead of you to Galilee. You will see him there. That's the message. And the women, deep in wonder and full of joy, lost no time in leaving the tomb, and they ran to tell the disciples. And then Jesus met them, stopping them in their tracks, and he said, good morning. Isn't that the best? Do you know that when you're like in chaos mode and your mind is racing and you don't know what to do and you're stressed out and you're struggling and where is there hope? What's going on? You know what Jesus does? Sometimes he just comes and says, hey, good morning. Like, you know what he's saying? He's like, relax. I got this. There's a story in the Old Testament where Elisha is going to get killed and he's running for his life and crying out to God. And all of a sudden, God just makes him lunch. For real. He makes him lunch. He's going to die, and all of a sudden there's just bread roasting on a fire, and he makes him lunch. Because he's God. And he has it all under control. And if we entrust our lives with him and we ask him, he's going to take care of us, and he's going to be like, relax. Good morning. Here's lunch. And the women come, and Jesus says, good morning, and they fell to their knees and embraced him, and they worshiped him. Jesus saves because today is Sunday and because he's alive, and he can save us from anything because he defeated everything. God saves us today from the immediate. Rach, you want to come play? So here's my question. Here's my take home for you. I think we miss out on so much of what God wants to do in us because we just don't ask. The Bible says that you don't receive because you don't ask. And my picture of our Father is that he gave his Son for us, and he gave him authority over all things, and he beat death. And what he wants to do is just be in relationship and connection with us. And he wants to take the things in our lives that are hard, that we can't handle, that we try to control, but it just doesn't work. And he's like, good morning. Let me take this. Let me do this. Because Jesus doesn't just save for eternity, he saves today. And every single thing that you have going on in your life, every question you have, everything you're trying to figure out, just ask. I don't know about you, my kids come to me, and they come and they ask, Daddy, will you play with me? Daddy, will you do this? Daddy, will you do that? Well, you're kind of a bad kid. You haven't talked to me for like a week or a month or a year. I'm like, yes, let's play. You know that's the Heavenly Father. That's the Savior we serve. So in your life, what needs saving? In your life today, what area do you need to be like, Jesus, I need you to save this? Maybe it's a future, maybe it's something in your family, maybe it's someone who you love who's sick or hurting. Jesus might not just fix it. He might just it's perfect now. That's not the way it works, But what he'll do and what he promises is truly you will be with me and I will be with you. So let's pray.